How we doing? Thanks for coming. That too loud? Hi, my name is Dan LeClaire. I'm Vice Chair of the Amherst Dems and also one of your state reps. But just know that nothing partisan here. This is just for citizens of Amherst to meet our candidates and chat, ask questions, and do so hopefully in an orderly fashion. So to talk about that, we have Dan Vayer, who is also, he's the chair of the Amherst Dems and also one of your state reps. So, welcome, Dan.
Thanks for that warm introduction, Dan. Just a little housekeeping right now. We have Terry Eber from the Amherst Republicans with us, and he wanted to know if we would be willing to announce that they're going to be having a forum on Saturday, March 7th at 10 a.m. at the Firehouse. It'll be a similar format and probably similar questions, and if you're a candidate, you can use this as practice for that one.
It won't be as good as the food in this one.
Just some rules of the road. There isn't a rule here that we won't break today, so this is going to be like freestyle for the most part. We're going to have some basic rules to go by, so we have something to, so we don't have to pull out the shepherd's hook or anything like that to get you off the. Charlotte's going to be keeping time, and if she holds out her hand and tells you to stop talking, take us a few seconds to wrap up, and we'll move on from there. The rule is, if as a candidate you get 3 minutes to introduce yourself, when you hit the 3-minute mark, Charlotte will let you know, and you'll get 30 seconds to wrap up. We're not going to just cut you off and say that's it. For contested races, when you get questions, try to take only about a minute for the answer. That's going to be tough sometimes, and we're not going to be terribly strict about that, but we're going to try to get everybody else equal time. So if you take 3 minutes to answer, we're going to give everybody else 3 minutes to answer. And we may not have time to come back for follow-ups or anything like that. Depending on how time goes, we're going to play this all by ear, and we're going to try, if there's some question forms up here, if you can write down your question ahead of time, that will help us kind of screen and fit things in. If there are multiple questions on the same topic, that lets us know ahead of time so we can consolidate them into one and everybody gets their questions answered. If there's something that you thought of last second and you don't have time to write it down, please raise your hand and we'll try to call on you. Just be respectful. I don't think there's anybody here who's going to blast anybody or be rude or anything like that. So just understand that we're all here to do our best for the community and best intentions. So that being said, unless anybody has any questions from here on, we'll get started. Our first candidate I think most people at least know his name if you haven't met him before. He's been a scion of the town since long before I ever moved here, like 18 years ago, and he and his wife have been involved in everything, and his wife Marie has organized about every piece of this town as far as I understand, from parades to holiday events, and they've been very, very important to this community. I'd like to introduce Tom Grella for the Board of Selectmen. And he's uncontested, so he'll get 3 minutes and maybe some extra time if he needs it.
Very good, thank you. Well, welcome, everyone. I've been around, as he said, for quite a while, 60 years actually. And I've run for selectman and been selectman for 27 years so far. And it's pretty interesting because the last, I think, 4 or 5 times, nobody's challenged me at all. So it's very interesting. Why am I here? I could sit home watching TV or watching the Olympics or something like that, but I'm here for you folks. Nevertheless, Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whatever, you're all Americans, same as me. And as I'm looking around here, there's one person that I definitely have to recognize as far as helping the town develop a new strategy. That's Micah Killian. Because right now, the Board of Selectmen, and actually any of the boards that he's talked and interviewed with, could just sit together and predict what the tax rate is going to be 5 years from now. Because we're looking in the future, we're looking into how many how many times we have to replace a fire engine or DPW vehicle or something like that. But I want to talk about 4 things that have happened over the last 27 years or so. Going way back to when Herb Wenzel owned the beach and the pavilion, the town had an opportunity to buy that for $80,000 for this beachfront or whatever. And somebody was talking about, hey, we can get federal money to do this. What does federal money mean? Well, it means anybody in America can come in and use this beach. Well, wait a minute. What happens if we put a limited number of people here, and I'm one person beyond the limit? I can't swim on a beach that I paid for, but yet somebody from Louisiana or whatever has the opportunity to do this. Let's buy this ourselves, which we did. Second incident is the Green Bridge just before you come to Sohegan High School. Same situation. The town had a proposal by a bridge company to build it, and the state came along and said, well, we're going to have to do the engineering and add on and this and that. And it turned out to be we could spend less money with doing it ourselves than when the state came in to help us out. They never did help us out. The third item is this building you're in right now. I don't know if people remember, just a couple of years ago, the proposal was to buy this golf course, and not one penny of tax money went to buy this, because it was 2 different funds that the Recreation Commission uses. Is they call it the O2 fund, and that is money coming in from out-of-town residents that use the facilities. You want to play Little League baseball or whatever, you got to pay so much to the town of Amherst.
Tom,
So that's
3 minutes. You have 30 seconds.
okay. Okay, so anyway, as it turned out, this was bought by money from Conservation Commission money. That money came in from when a parcel of property is sold. 10% of the sold price goes into the Conservation Commission. So the Conservation Commission plus this OTUB fund is what paid for this. It has not cost the town anything other than upkeep. So that's it, I believe. Sorry, I'd like to talk to you more for.
Take another minute if you need to.
Pardon?
Take another minute if you want.
Okay. So that's 3. Let me ask you folks, maybe you've got some questions for me. I'd be glad to answer them. Wow. That's surprising.
How's everything going with all the new staff? You have a new staff.
Interesting. We seem to evacuate Milford's employees. The town administrator, recreation department, and then there's someone else. The finance director came from Hollis. So, yes, we've been very lucky, and I think it's been an improvement. Everybody's learning a little bit different. We do it the Amherst way, which is the best way. So, no, that's worked out very well. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to say anything on behalf of Marie? Marie is running for, Marie Grella is running for cemetery trustee. She's been doing that for a long time, from what I understand.
Yeah, her and I started together, so she's had nine terms, and she knows what she's doing. She's responsible for adding on this new cemetery. And by the way, everybody just thinks there's maybe 2 cemeteries in Amherst, but there's actually 7. Right over here, shop ways away is the Palmer Cemetery. One person, we don't know who that person is, or gender, or whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next officer we have on the list is supervisor of the checklist, and that's Donnie Hodgkins, and she is an incumbent. She can't be here today, but she asked me to read a short statement for her. It says, I am Donnie Hodgkins, and I am running for re-election to the position of supervisor of the checklist. I'm sorry I am unable to join you this morning for this valuable candidate forum. Supervisors of the checklist have the responsibility of registering new voters, removing ineligible voters from the rolls, and entering election data for the town records. This requires a strong understanding and knowledge of election laws and a continual training in these matters. It is our duty to ensure that the voters of Amherst have complete confidence in the electoral system. For my first term as supervisor of the checklist, it has been my goal to serve the voters of Amherst in an honest, transparent, efficient, courteous, and impartial manner. I will always strive to serve the voters of Amherst and work for the betterment of the electoral process in our town. I humbly ask for your vote and continued support in my position as supervisor of the checklist. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, Donnie Hodgkins. All right. Let's see here. The first contested race that we have on our schedule for today is the trustee of the trust funds. There are two candidates, and I'll ask them to come up now if they're available. Michael Parisi and Andrew Horn. We can give you each 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and a 30-minute wrap-up. And while you're doing that, I don't know how many questions we'll have for the trustee of the trust funds, but while you're doing that, maybe describe what your viewpoint is of the role of the trustee of the trust funds and how you'll handle yourselves in that position. This is Michael Parisi.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. So this position, I'm not sure how many are familiar with trustee of the trust fund and what we do, but more than probably any other elected position, this really isn't a political one. So our personal views really have nothing to do with how we fulfill our duties. Our main priority is to earn the greatest return and performance for the investable assets for the town. So that's our focus. So I haven't had the opportunity to meet Andrew, and I don't know his resume. But I do truly hope that whichever one is most qualified for the position is the one that wins the election. So with that in mind, I thought it'd be beneficial just to give my professional resume and bio so you know a little bit more about me. So personally, I've been in town for about 15 years now with my wife Victoria, and we have two kids, sophomore and junior at Sauhegan. I've been honored to serve as a trustee for the past 6 years, so this is my third term that I'm seeking election for. I think it might be the first, Tom, you probably know, the first contested trustee race in like 50 years, so that's exciting. So in addition to supporting the town as a trustee, I did serve on the Ways and Means Committee for the town for 3 years, and I was the chair for my final year. That was back in 2022. So from an educational perspective, I do have my undergrad degree and MBA, both with concentrations in accounting. And then from a professional standpoint, so I have spent my entire career in banking. Right now, I'm currently the Chief Banking Officer at Ledyard Bank. That's probably a new name for many. We're based up in the Upper Valley in Hanover, New Hampshire. But we did just open up our new office in Bedford, so we're coming closer. We're actually one of the fastest growing banks in New England. So in that role, I oversee kind of anything that touches a consumer client. So you can think the retail branch network, digital banking, operations, facilities, and there's more, but I think that gives a good overview. Before this role, I was with Citizens Bank, and I had roles there where I did have my investment security licenses as well. Let's see. In addition to my work specifically with the town, I'm also the treasurer on the Historical Society, and I've been doing that since 2019. In addition to that, I also serve on the board of Kendall at Hanover, which is one of the preeminent continuing care communities in New England. Not sure if anyone here is familiar with it, but in my role there as a board member, I serve on the board development committee as well as the board finance committee, and I am the incoming chair for that committee, and we manage a investment portfolio of over $46 million right now. I think I hit all my bullet points, so happy to take any questions at the end. But again, I think this is a position where experience and knowledge really matter. Again, it's really not a political position. My feelings on any issue on the ballot doesn't come into play. Our priority is to ensure a positive return. Most of what we do with the funds in Amherst is we have to create income so we can give money out through the common trust funds, and that's a priority. So we prioritize return and dividends. So, and I think we've done a good job. So.
Hi. My name is Andrew Horn. I'm 37. I have a bachelor's in economics, and I'm a software engineer. I've lived all over 3 countries on 2 continents. I speak rusty Mandarin, but I settled here because I believe in local democracy, because I loved the Thai Buddhist monastery and temple, and I value the New England tradition of self-governance. I also worked as a field organizer for the Harris Walls campaign in 2024. I didn't plan to run for trustee. I saw a vacancy and I stepped up so it wouldn't sit empty. I'm sorry. I won't be insulted if you choose my opponent. Seems like a perfectly good guy. But here's what I offer. A hard skepticism of bubbles. I'm excited about AI. I use it all the time. I use it to help write this, actually. Just as we were excited about the internet. But we remember the dot-com crash. Today's market is the second most overvalued in history, according to the Robert Shiller PE index. We should not gamble the town's savings on that peak. Instead, we must de-risk and diversify, shifting from overpriced U.S. equities into broad international index funds where assets are undervalued. Don't put all our eggs in one basket when the basket is priced for perfection. I will guard this trust with the caution your money deserves. Thank you. And I just want to show you the Shiller PE ratio historically. So Robert Shiller, he won the Nobel Prize in economics. He predicted the dot-com bubble. And you can see that you have three clear peaks. You have 1929, you have 2000, which was much higher, and you have today. So I think it's a really good idea. We don't know when a bubble is going to pop. You just don't know. It could be next year, could be in 10 years, could be in 30 years. But it's a good idea to de-risk out of the overpriced market and the overconcentrated market of U.S. equities. Again, I won't be insulted if you vote for this guy at all. Happy to take questions.
How much money does this trust fund have in it? Like, are we talking millions, hundreds of thousands? Like, what's the size of the portfolio?
I didn't even look it up, honestly.
So there's two different pieces. So there's the Common Trust Fund, which is, we have about 15 accounts right now. And mostly that's money that's been left for the greater community. So what we do with those funds is we do invest those in the markets, bonds, securities. And the whole point of that is we have to protect the principal while also generating income, because the income is what we pay out. So for example, all the scholarships we give out annually, we have to preserve the principal, but we are allowed to pay out a portion of the income every year. And there's other funds that are similar. Cemetery Trustees, I think, has 4. So in the Common Trust Funds, we have 5.4 million there. And we don't prioritize return. That we care about that, but we have to generate income. So if you looked at what our return ratios were, they're good. Our 3-year is 11.22%. But if you put that in the S&P index, it's nowhere near that, right? So it's less than that, but again, income's the priority. In the Capital Reserve Fund, and this is the other bucket we manage, we have 7.7 million. But what's different there is we can't actually invest those funds. So we have to put them into insured products. So you think CDs, annuities, things like that. So right now they're all in brokered CDs, earning the going rate, which is, depending on what day you look, somewhere in the 4% area.
Why is that?
Great question. So it is regulated. So the state, yep. So think about the example of, you vote to put money in a fund for the fire truck. 5 years from now, you need to make sure that money's there. So we can't risk any of that principal. So, yep.
How many trustees are there on the trust fund?
Great question. So there's 3. So one of us runs every year. Bob Grunbeck is the longest standing, and he's the chair. Richard Spencer joined 2 years ago. And then we've had a couple of alternates come and go over time. But yeah, there's 3 voting members.
You guys. Good job. All right, I'm going to call up one of our next uncontested races. It's a little bit out of order from our sheet, but most of you don't know our order, so. I'm going to call up the office is the town moderator, and that's Mark Vincent, who's running uncontested. For uncontested candidates, we just ask you to take 3 minutes to introduce yourself and describe what the role of the town moderator is and what you bring to the position. And you're new, I know, but
Well, new to this job.
yes.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's always great to be in a room full of engaged voters, and I certainly expect to see each and every one of you on Election Day on March 10th. So my name is Mark Vincent. I am running again for moderator. Now, some of you who attend this forum regularly will say, weren't you just here last year giving this whole spiel, and I saw your name on the ballot, and here you are again a year later? Well, that's because I'm currently serving the remainder of a term for our prior elected moderator who moved out of town and had to step down. So George Bauer was appointed the interim moderator until last year's election when I was on the ballot. The moderator's term is 2 years, so this year I'm running for a full 2-year term, and I would certainly welcome all of your support. It was noted that I'm on the ballot uncontested, but you never know when a surprise write-in campaign may be launched. So I'm always, always got to run as if there's 16 candidates on the ballot. So why am I running? I love elections. I really do. I enjoy being at the polls on Election Day. I love voting. I love talking to all the folks who work there. So I figured, well, instead of stopping by and voting and spending, 45 minutes or an hour chatting with folks, let's turn it into an 18-hour day. How about that? And so that's what I've been doing. I've been assistant moderator for a few elections. So I know, I'm still learning. But there's a lot to it, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy working with all the folks who work on elections, our supervisors and our clerk, deputy clerk, and our assistant moderators, our ballot clerks. We've got a lot of great people in this town who, whether they're paid employees or volunteers, they do a great job. I enjoy working with all of them. My goal, as always, is to see our elections continue to be smooth and efficient and accurate. And folks who want to come in, vote, and leave and make that a very quick process, I want to make sure that they can do that and that we get a good, accurate count at the end of the night. Now, the election, of course, is part 2 of our town meeting. Part 1 is the deliberative session, which we just had just a few days ago. I think that went relatively well, if not a long meeting, as it sometimes is. We have a terrific Ways and Means Committee. We've got a couple of members of that committee here today. Did a great job analyzing the budget and presenting their findings. So I think that went pretty well. So obviously I want to continue that as well. So I appreciate your support, and I'll see you all on March 10th. Uh-oh.
So, Mr. Rock, you appoint the Ways and Means Committee members.
I do.
What characteristics do you look for in a Ways and Means Committee member?
Okay, I look for somebody who is inquisitive and engaged and enjoys attending a lot of meetings. You have to have an aptitude for attending a lot of meetings, only between September and January, but you got to be into that. I want to have a committee that brings a lot of different perspectives to the table. When I served on Amherst School District Ways and Means, we had that, and I think it worked really well. You have to collaborate well with the selectmen and the department heads, and everybody. If everything works out well, you come together and everybody can get behind the budget and the rest of the warrant articles. Now, sometimes there are differences of opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm looking for people who want to be engaged in the process and ask a lot of questions, even if they think or know that the question has been asked every year. I always told folks, ask it again. You don't know if you're going to get the same answer or not. But the fact that you keep asking means that that's an area of interest for the Ways and Means, and they need all the information that they can get to give good recommendations. So that's what I would look for. And I'll take this opportunity on that question to say we're always looking for more Ways and Means members. We always, as regular members, as alternates, to get more people into the process. We have people coming in and out all the time. We got a great committee, but we're always looking for new members. So if you're interested in serving, you can contact me at moderator@amherstnh.gov.
Yeah, one quick question. Will Luke, is this the first election that we'll be using the new polling machines or election machines?
Vote tabulators is what we call them. That's what we call them, because they are vote tabulators. The answer to your question is yes. We have purchased brand-new vote tabulators. They are not voting machines. They do not cast ballots. You all cast the ballot. Your voting machine is whichever hand you write with. We have paper ballots, but the tabulators help us get a quicker count at the end of the night. We have brand new machines. We have taken delivery of the machines. We've done an initial training session with the selectmen and our assistant moderators. We're going to be doing ballot testing, which is mandated by the Secretary of State. We're going to be doing that. It hasn't been officially scheduled yet, but it's going to be the week before, most likely the week before the election, allowing enough time if there is an issue to have our service provider resolve that. But so far so good with these new machines. I think they're an improvement over the old ones for a variety of reasons, which I don't need to get into here, but I think they're going to serve us very well. We also have a new accessible voting system. When you go in to vote, you may notice the white tent over to your left before you get to the tabulators. That's the accessible voting for folks who have challenges that require that equipment. We're getting all new equipment this year that the state has chosen. So in that tent, there's a printer, and there's an iPad, and there's a keyboard and headset and everything for whatever needs the voter may have, and it prints out a ballot the same as all the ones that you cast, and so it gets tabulated the same way. So we've got a lot of new technology at work, but again, it's only to count the votes, not to cast the votes. Thank you for that question.
So in all the years I've lived here, I've always felt that our elections have been free, fair, well-run, etc. The only question I have is, are these new vote
Tabulators.
tied into the network?
No. No, they are not. And I'm going to be saying that, I think, a lot over the next few weeks. And some people won't believe me. I hope you do, Mike. But they're not. We talked about this when we took delivery of the machines and when we did the training session. They're not. They actually work. It's different technology involved, but at a high level, they operate the same as the old machines. They count the votes. They toss the write-ins in one bin. The ones with no write-ins, they toss in a different bin. And so the experience for the voter should be the same. The process that we use at the end of the night to count is largely unchanged. The new machines will make that a little more efficient in a few ways. But no, they are not connected to anything. So it still relies on me and the other moderators and our vote counters. Well, that's the other thing. See, I'm always asking for help here. I'm always looking for volunteers. We are always also looking for people to help count votes at the end of the night. While the tabulators handle the vast majority of the count, write-ins have to be counted manually, and there are always ballots that are in the hand count bin that need to be hand counted and add to the tabulator count. So if you're interested in being a ballot counter, you can contact me or anybody over at Town Hall to sign up for that. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Who are the assistant town moderators? Who are your assistants?
My assistants are the other moderators, school district moderators, George Bauer and Matt Comstock. Steve Coughlin continues to insist on being a moderator, and I tell Steve the same thing all the time, and believe me, I'm going to welcome and need his help, especially on this first. This is not my first election as an assistant moderator. It's going to be my first election as moderator. But we got a lot of experience between George, who was a moderator for that interim, and Steve, who did the job forever and ever. He's been an immense help this whole time with deliberative. He'll be an immense help on election day, and I'm going to be recruiting a couple of other folks to help. Now with the town election, because the turnout unfortunately is so much less than the fall elections, we don't need as many assistant moderators, but it's a great opportunity to learn the process when things aren't as hectic as they can be, especially in November, and get people on board. But again, here's a third opportunity to ask for volunteers, so thank you. If you really like elections and you would like to be an assistant moderator, same deal. Contact me, and we'll get you engaged in the process. We do have fun, in addition to doing all the work. Thank you for that. All right.
Thanks. Just to reiterate some of the points that Mark made, if the Ways and Means committees are great. There's Ways and Means for the Amherst School District. There's Sauhegan Advisory Finance Committee, which is just a fancier name for a Ways and Means committee for Sauhegan High School. And I think Mr. Grella would probably agree that the town can always use people to sit on their Ways and Means committee, and the SAU board has a Ways and Means committee. There's plenty of places to step up and help out and learn a lot. You really learn about how all these organizations work, and it's great. Another thing I'd like to say is election integrity in this town. My first election, I lost by 14 votes and went through a recount, and the vote count changed by 1. So they're accurate. They're so those voting machines and the way they run are tabulators. Okay, moving on. The next group, we mixed in, we usually just do candidates, but because we had so many uncontested races, we thought we'd throw in some of the bond questions as well. And I'd like to bring up the Amherst Conservation Commission representatives to talk a little bit about the open space acquisition bond. And it's Rob Clemens and Steve Lutz.
We're gonna try to hook this up.
I can entertain the crowd. We thought we only had 3 minutes, so we weren't going to do slides or anything, and then Dan told us we had more.
If you need water while you're up there, just grab a bottle. I know my mouth dries up when I'm talking, so please.
So first, thanks very much for inviting us to come present on this bond article. And also, Tom Grella, thank you for the reference to the open space that we happen to enjoy and share here today. As Tom pointed out, the Conservation Commission and the Rec Department went in on this property when it became available, and it's been, I think, just a really good acquisition for the town. And the town's getting a lot of use out of this property, which is great. I know some jokes. Hang on a second. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I guess I can start this. The Conservation Commission developed a 10-year strategic plan over the last year, largely at the insistence and help of Micah Killian, who's here in the crowd. We know he likes strategic plans and put us through the ropes, which was good. But the number one goal that came out of that process was the need for preservation of open space here in town, largely in response to surveys and outcomes from the master planning process that the town went through. We're good to go? Good. So, as a result of that strategic planning process, our goal number one was basically to grow the scale of protected natural open space with the appropriate geography here in town. The goal that the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests put forward for towns in New Hampshire quite a few years ago was for towns to seek to conserve 25% of their town acreage as open space as a goal. We're not there. We're not suggesting we even get there. Right now, I think we're looking at something like 13%, and we're hoping to get to 15%. So this particular warrant article really is intended to give us the ability to acquire land when key parcels become available and are for sale. So what is the warrant article? It's basically to raise or to have the authority to borrow up to $10 million to acquire property as it becomes available. There was initially a 10-year cap that we put on that. That's not on there anymore. It's basically if this passes, then we have that ability to raise those funds through the bond bank. And as an example, as far as the tax impacts of that, a $2 million property, for instance, would cost approximately $37 per year per voter. Expensive, yes, but studies have shown, and I think it's true here in town, that land preserved as open space is land that's not developed, that requires town services, town school support and everything else that goes with it. So I think it's important to have a balance between the open space we have here in town and the developable space in town, which remains quite large.
Do we want to just quickly address to the mechanics of land is identified?
Yeah, the way this works, I think people imagine we were going to immediately get $10 million as a result of the vote and go out and spend it immediately. That's not how this works. It's basically bonding authority. So as a property becomes available and we can negotiate an acceptable price for that, it is at that point that we borrow the money to pay for that property. So if there's no land for sale, there's no money being borrowed and nothing being paid on that by the taxpayers. And I think that's important to point out.
Yeah, and I think it just stresses that it gives us the ability to negotiate when a land comes available. Without that, we're just talking, donation, which, many times we do pursue that, but it many times doesn't work. So it gives us the ability to negotiate. Without that funding, we're just, we'll have to, go up against developers, and that land will go that path.
Next slide. So we did this once before, about five years ago, 2021. The town voted overwhelmingly to support a land acquisition article that was for $6 million for 5 years. It was through those funds that we acquired 178 acres over on Pond Parish, and also went in with the Amherst Land Trust to acquire 60 more acres up on between New Boston and Boston Post Road. Those were properties previously slated for approximately 70 homes. So again, this is a means to preserve open space and offset the development pressures that we continue to see here in town. Next one. And as I said earlier, this is largely driven by the town's results of survey of the town in preparation for the master plan, and the master plan's conclusion that preservation of open space, protection of water resources, preserving the rural aesthetic of this town was an overwhelming priority for the town's residents. Go ahead. And we just don't go out and buy property for the sake of buying property. We have a very extensive set of criteria we've developed that prioritizes parcels in town that we might consider acquiring, and that includes water resources protection. It includes ranking of ecological value by the state, looks at key features, and certainly public access is part of that. Go ahead. And I don't want you to read these, but these are the criteria we use when we look at potential parcels that might be available for purchase.
Yeah, so just to kind of give you a snapshot of what other towns around us look like. So if you look at Bedford at 8% of their conserved space of the land in town, Merrimack's at 9%, Amherst right around 14% that the Conservation Commission controls, and Hollis, if you drive through Hollis, it's at 32%. It's notable. So, it is our goal to preserve that wildlife corridor, protect the resources that we have, and that's really the purpose of this bond, is to create that connectivity, which is one of our criteria. It's nice to get a piece of land. It's even nicer to get a piece of land that's connected to another piece of land to create access, to create that wildlife corridor. So, in the master plan, the NRPC, basically did some estimates, and I won't go through, it's kind of a busy slide, but at a very high level, by, I think, 2040, they show that about 70% of the properties will be developed if it goes the way with the natural development paths that we see. So, right now, that would say that about 12,000 acres developed area will move to 15, but most importantly, it says that there was 185 parcels that were 10 acres or greater. That'll be down to 106. So, again, the $10 million that we're looking for certainly is kind of a balance between conservation in protecting our resources, creating those corridors, and allowing the development. Obviously, $10 million isn't going to take up all of that land that is currently open space. So it's a nice balance between the two, and that is our goal, is to create that balance and protect our resources.
Yep, just one last point. I think at the deliberative session, I know many of you were there, someone asked why the Board of Selectmen didn't unanimously support this, and I think the response made by one of the selectmen was that this is a want, not a need. And yes, it is a want. It's not a need, but it's an opportunity that only is around for so long, and then it's no longer available. The other thing I think comment was made is a worry that the ACC would get distracted by the need to buy land and forget all the land we already own and that we spend a lot of time managing. I can assure you the ACC's never dropped the ball on managing any of the properties that town has voted to support or buy. So questions, we'll take whatever.
At the last deliberative session, I asked you about how this could be cost justified. I know there's people making arguments out there that will actually reduce our taxes, but one of the things you said, and I think it was a very unfortunate statement, was that it would lock away land that could potentially be used to develop homes that families could move into. And families moving in with children going into schools drives up a tax rate. And I believe you used that as one of the justifications for doing this. And I thought to myself afterwards, that sounds a little bit anti-family to me. So I thought I'd give you another chance to try to explain that comment.
I can assure you we're not anti-family, we're not anti-development. There's a huge amount of space left in this town for development. We're talking with this adding potentially, what, 300 acres?
Yeah, it's if you do the quick math, there's well over 1,000 acres of unprotected development, probably even greater than that. Based on recent acquisitions, Rob's correct, this would be about 300 acres of that, and that it would be high priority acres protection. So there's, again, as I said a minute ago, there was a balance between allowing the development that wants to occur in this town and preserving the open space that we have in that connectivity. So I think, does that answer, that's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to
The other thing I'd say is that there are development proposals in town, and you all are familiar with them, that are multi residences, multi-family kid potential. And those are the ones you hear about through the planning board, but there are lots being sold in this town every day and houses going up on them, ones and twos. There's a lot of land left in this town to develop, way beyond the capacity of schools to manage it. So I don't think what we're proposing puts very much of a big dent in that at all. Mike, you were going to ask something.
I don't want this to turn into a deliberative session, but I do have a comment, and that is, the state organizes communities in vertical areas. They have the select board manage police, etc., fire. The schools are their own separate board. The libraries are their separate board. Then you have different committees like ACC, whatever. And it is the master plan that should tie a lot of things together in terms of affordable housing and conservation and whatnot. And so I think, I have always thought you guys have done a wonderful job in maintaining the land under your conservancy. I thought the work you guys did around thinking through strategically where you're going and how you balance new land acquisition with what you have is absolutely very thoughtful and meticulous. And I think we get into a real problem if we say, well, $10 million here is a want, right? I don't think this is really what you're talking about as a want. You're not saying that. I think that was somebody else's comment. I think we as citizens have to modulate where we're spending dollars and keep it in balance. I think what you've proposed makes eminent good sense for eminently good reasons, and absolutely support what you guys have done.
Thank you. In the back.
Just wondering how long.
There's no end on it. We proposed it be 10-year, but I don't recall if it was town council or who suggested to us that we just take that away.
Was the question how long do we have to pay?
I think it's 20-year, typically 20-year bond durations. I think that's what we did for the last one.
You're only showing a 5-year impact, which I understand is all that's required, but can you share the year 6 through 20 as well?
I can't, only because I.
So we could from a hypothetical point of view, but as we said before, it isn't a direct, when we vote in March, we're not taking the $10 million bond, right? We will be taking time to understand, to find that property, to negotiate that property, and then the bond for that amount will be taken. So again, it's the authority to do that. So, it's difficult to give an exact answer, but we can give you based on assumption that the $10 million was raised right away, and then, that's the best number we can give you. Hannah?
I think what you're proposing is right on, and your presentation was great. I'm just wondering if you have a moment. What about conservation easements in town? Does that come under you at all?
We have, I want to say 40 to 50 conservation easements that we manage here in town, and they are part of that 3,000 acre number. Yes, they are.
I did some math on your proposal, 20 years. It's about, for an average, let's say, assessed value home in this town of $500,000, a family would pay out $3,500 in taxes over the next 20 years. And there's some concern about affordability, and people are trying to address that. Yet we're proposing a 20-year commitment to like a $500,000 assessment home of a $3,500 tax burden, while people are complaining about the cost of new homes. So I'm just curious how this kind of jives with trying to keep homes affordable in this town for families to move in while adding a $3,500 tax burden. And I'm not fully against taking land. I'm not totally against that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the argument of development versus conservation. I think our role is to put in front of the voters what we see as an opportunity over the next 20 years to preserve the land that we have. It strikes a balance between still allowing a lot of land to be available for development. So we're not stopping development. We're just identifying pieces of land that are high priority in the ecological side, the connectivity and the wildlife, and going after that. This $10 million is not going to take away all the development. Houses still will be able to be built.
There's the $3,500.
Right. I mean, I don't. Certainly there's an investment, and there's some studies out there we can all read about that. UNH has one that talks about conserved land costs versus development land costs, because in that argument you have to look at what are the pressures on the schools and the resources in town. So that's an in-depth article that we're not going to solve today, but there are articles out there you can discuss.
All right, thank you.
I think we're running out of time. We're getting the hook. One more question.
Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks a lot. This is, I think, our first more contended race. It's the planning board. There are 2 seats and 3 candidates. I don't know if all the candidates are here. And then we have Andrew Horn. And I've never met the other candidates, but Thomas Quinn and Joseph Broderick, are they here? And Thomas couldn't make it. He emailed me yesterday and said he might not make it. But so, Andrew, you're on all alone. Take 3 minutes and 30 seconds to introduce yourself, and we'll ask you some tough questions.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dan. I actually want this position. So I want you to remember 3 words when you think of my candidacy: affordability, affordability, and affordability. All right? I'm running for planning board because we have an affordability crisis. Right now, teachers, nurses, and firefighters cannot afford to live here. They may rent a room, but they can't raise families. We must not become a museum of houses, but a living community of homes. Now, I don't know how many of you remember Tony LaBranche, but he was one of your state reps here. He grew up here, he went to Sauhegan High School, he went to Amherst Middle School, and he was a state rep. He had to resign because he was priced out, and he lives in Nashua now. He would be more than happy to live here, but unfortunately, we have an affordability crisis. And that's caused by a supply shortage. Again, degree in economics, supply shortage. Some say we need to preserve a rural character, but it is not the acre that makes the character, it's the neighbor. Protecting the landscape while driving the people out isn't preservation, it's hollowing out the community. And the economics aren't complicated, it's simple math. More homes mean lower taxes for everyone. We need to build more housing, not skyscrapers, just enough density to end this shortage. Build for the teacher, build for the nurse, build for the firefighter, and build for yourself. Today we have people who grew up here and are teachers here. Tony LaBranche is a substitute teacher at Sauhegan, but they can't live here. They teach here, but they can't live here. We have an aging community, and we're going to need nurses, and they can't live here. And this is fundamentally a supply problem, and that requires more housing. Vote for affordability, vote for me. Thank you so much for your time. I'll take any questions. Please.
Wouldn't commercial property actually solve more of the tax problem? Because any commercial property, if we have any land available for it, wouldn't necessarily need additional housing.
I mean, that makes sense. I haven't looked at that particular issue in great depth, but the argument makes sense. I definitely care about lowering the tax burden on the average person. The tax burden affects it affects me as well. But my chief issue is affordability. So, I really care about making sure we increase the amount of residential housing in Amherst.
Affordable residential housing is what you're trying to do.
Both and. So if, of course, I'm going to choose affordable housing over not affordable if I had a choice. But, I supported very openly the Jacobson Farm project, which is not mostly affordable housing. That's mostly just $1 million homes, because this is a supply shortage. We need more housing of all kinds. Anything that's more housing is going to make a difference. Again, degree in economics. It's just basic supply and demand. Yes.
This is a difficult question I'm about to ask you.
Please. Please.
How do you define affordability? What is an affordable house? I'm a New Hampshire native, okay? I have seen this state grow. And I've lived in enough communities where what you talk about were teachers, firefighters, nurses, can't afford to live in a small New Hampshire town. It's been going on all my life. My goal would be to raise their salaries.
Mm-hmm.
That is my answer. But how do you define affordable housing? Is it what we now call workforce housing? I'm not sure. The apartments they're building in Bedford, Maryland, they're going for $2,000, $3,000 a month. Is that what? I just want to know what your number is.
I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's it.
Okay. Cool. I mean, I don't have a number in my head, but yeah, of course, I want something that's less than $2,000, $3,000 a month, of course. But every time we build something, it's going to decrease the rent price everywhere, regardless of what we're building. It's a supply shortage. You build more supply, you're going to decrease the price. Basic economics, lots of economists agree on this.
I agree with you on that because our land has gotten too expensive now. Please, go on. What is an affordable housing price? I don't know.
Well, it's not about the specific thing that gets built. it's about the total supply. If you have more of a thing, whatever the commodity is, whatever the product is, if you have more of it, it's going to drive down the price because the different companies will want to compete with one another. Yeah, competition, more competition for selling whatever it is. Housing is no different from any other product in that way.
You know, I've talked to other members of the select board about this question, and their view is, and there's studies to prove it, that even if we build really like $1 million homes in this town, people move up into those $1 million homes because it creates more supply, and then the lower middle class people move into the middle class homes. So the builders in this town really don't want to build affordable housing because they can't make any money on it. Why not just let the free market reign and you know, build more of the houses that people actually want to own and that builders can make profit from, which will increase the supply and will reduce the prices. I mean, this idea of these, you know, Potemkin villages, like this one's going to be workforce and that unit's going to be plus 55, and these 3 units over there, we're going to charge them extra to pay for those guys' houses. I hate when I read that kind of stuff coming out of planning board meetings. I think we should just facilitate, build it all, you know. If builders want to come in and they can make a few bucks off of it, let them do it, you know. But I just would like to hear your response to that.
So I'm a progressive Democrat. I've always been a progressive Democrat, so I'm always going to choose denser, more affordable housing over anything else. But I tend to agree in the sense that I totally agree with you. If you build $1 million house, you're going to have people moving out of older homes and into those $1 million homes. They leave something vacant, and people who are not so wealthy are going to move into those housing that they left, whether those be apartments or those be you know, single-family homes or whatever. I tend to have a both-and view. It's that we need more housing, period. So if that comes through pure free market, that's fine. If that comes through some sort of incentivization to make sure that it's more dense housing, that's fine. I've talked to some developers, and you know, they don't want to build in Amherst because it's just too hard to get through our ordinances and our planning board. It's just such a pain. And so you're going to end up building $1 million homes because, you know, it's such a high risk proposition to build here. You know, if we make it easier, we're going to have more. It's going to be more likely that you're going to have some developer that's interested in building more affordable housing. Please.
Yeah. There is no silver bullet for what we're grappling with here. There's no one fix. Again, different bodies within Amherst are organized to do vertical work. Within municipal government, we have a community development office that in most communities would also be economic development. We have not put much energy at all over the years into proactive economic development. So to the idea of increasing the tax base by having more businesses in the right places in this community is certainly a thing to do. The other thing that we don't do much of at all, as near as I can tell, is mixed use zoning, where in some communities you have businesses on the ground floor, apartments and condos on the upper floor. I can't name a particular place in Amherst where that exists. Okay, that would be another way of creating a wider variety of things, not just, you know, Terry's view is like you're sucking smoke up a chimney, right? You'll let everyone go up to $1 million homes and that's going to bring, that doesn't work, right? You've got to have a planning board that is also balancing paying attention to its ordinances that are voted on by the public. So there's no one thing to do. You can't do it, even if you get elected to the planning board, you don't have that reach.
Absolutely.
All of this should be done under a very active, well-managed, ongoing master planning process, which we don't have either. We did a master plan 3 years ago. It's sitting there idle. No one's paying attention to it. So until you begin using all tools at your disposal to solve this problem, it won't be because you elect to the planning board versus the other 2 candidates.
Right, and you mentioned, you know, mixed use zoning. I totally favor mixed use zoning, absolutely. For anyone who's not familiar, zoning in the United States doesn't really have a very good history. It has some racist history, sadly. And I've lived in places where zoning wasn't so important, and I thought it was perfectly fine. And I think it makes sense to have mixed-use zoning, just generally. I consider a little more free market. Again, very much a progressive Democrat, very much believe in decreasing inequality. But yeah, I think mixed-use zoning is a good idea. I agree with you that we need like a broad solution. And I totally agree that as a planning board member, it's a quasi-judicial role. I can't just sort of say, oh, I like this and therefore I'm going to vote for it. Most of what we do on the planning board is deciding whether or not a developer is conforming to all the ordinances. And so the first thing to do is look at have they checked this box? Have they checked this box? That's the job much more than making judgment calls. However, there are a lot of judgment calls that get made in practice. We see that a lot, and the developers know that. They know that they're going to have a lot of grief when they come before the planning board. And we can't kind of ignore the fact that it does matter who's there for what kind of developments can get there and what kind of developers want to build here. Not to mention, the planning board does decide to some extent what ordinances go on the ballot in the first place. And so I would favor kind of turning back the clock by a few years, some of the ordinances that we had in effect that are no longer in effect, partially because our planning board is now elected and not appointed.
You did mention mixed use. There's people in town who are kind of questioning that because we're conserving land on one hand that would be nice, safe neighborhoods, yet we're trying to push families into commercial areas that are known for PFAS, busy streets, less safe areas. It just seems odd to me that we want to push families into like living behind Walmart, where it's PFAS capital behind Walmart, but at the same time we're saying we don't want you to have a nice cul-de-sac in this area over here, or a nice safe family home. So I think the mixed use is not all pros. There's cons to pushing families into these areas.
Makes a lot of sense.
Just to kind of build on the commercial, get away from the housing a little bit. The state has been trying to increase housing in certain, this is housing a little bit, but in certain businesses. Let's focus on the business side of this, like daycare facilities. I know there's a bill coming up this week regarding daycare facilities and how zoning is affecting whether in-home facilities are allowed or not allowed, and how do we address the shortage in that area? And what are your thoughts on states regulating zoning in these cases and kind of limiting local control?
Well, generally, so those are two separate questions, right?
Sort of related, because the state is going to try to change how towns can zone around like daycare facilities to try to make it more accessible for people to start daycare. Right. What are your thoughts on the state coming in and saying you can't restrict where daycare goes versus this town or city saying this is an appropriate place for a daycare and this is not?
I'm not sure how relevant that is to this particular position, considering I wouldn't be voting at the state level for whether or not that happens.
Yeah, it's your question.
Okay, so we have two bills actually in front of my right now. It's daycare by right in a residential home and a home-based business in your residential home by right.
Right.
And the home-based business would allow up to 4 non-related family member employees parking on your yard, a sign allowed in your yard up to like 6 feet total square foot, and it's by right, and the state would mandate that, override local zoning. So the question is, how do you feel about the state overriding local zoning, or would you push back and say, no, I think local ordinances towns are allowed to say, this is what we prefer versus the state coming down and pushing their regulations on?
As a planning board member, what ability would I have to push back, even if I were to dislike it?
I think it's just asking for the comment of what's your stance on local control versus state. I think that's really where this question is coming from, because that's what's getting debated in my committee. So I think it's asking about it.
I'm not running for state rep.
How would you ensure the decisions you make are best for the community and follow the law?
Can you repeat that, Dan?
How would you ensure that decisions you make are best for the community, but also follow the law?
So, I mean, you do need to look at the ordinances and make sure that they're following all the regulations that we have. You have to be fair. You have to make sure that you're being judicious, because that's the position. Fully answer the question, I'm sorry.
Just how do you educate yourself on state law versus local ordinances, and how do you balancing between the two? Because sometimes they don't match. You know, we found ourselves in lawsuits the last 5 or 6 years because the local policies didn't match what state and federal law require.
Well, I mean, of course, federal law and state law would local law, supremacy, normal American.
And how do you ensure your decisions are consistent with? How do you educate yourself on that?
I read.
Are there any more questions?
Can I just wanted to show another graph. So this is also Robert Schiller. In addition to predicting the dot-com bust, he also predicted the 2005 housing bust. And you can see that historically, with inflation-adjusted prices, this is 1890. This is the wrong. You can see this is 1890. This is 2005. This peak right here, and this is us. We're above the 2005 crash in housing prices. So we have an affordability crisis in a historical sense. That's not just a right now thing. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we will take a break. The next, and feel free to get up and grab a snack or something, and you're not going to bother anybody, I promise. The next race that we have on the docket here is Zoning Board of Adjustment. We have 2 candidates for that, and they're uncontested because there are 2 seats. The one candidate that we have confirmed is Andrew Pataki. And like the other candidates, the other uncontested races, we ask you to take 3 minutes to introduce yourself, describe the role and what you will bring to it, and I'll get to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Pataki. I've lived in town since 1991. I'm a veteran, military, retired postal 34 years, and I've been in town. Well, as soon as I got into town, the first day in town, there was a fire alarm, and a truck went driving down the road. Next thing you know, there was a fire truck going and a bunch of other trucks. So I went down to the central station where it is now, and I asked, what kind of fire department is this? Oh, it's a volunteer. So I says, can I apply? And they go, yeah, sure. So I had a resume this big. I was a former fire chief in the United States Marine Corps, Aviation Crash Fire and Rescue. And I joined. And the first person that I met was Tom Grell. He was the assistant chief with Jeff Manson. And I got on Engine 3. From then on, I was on the Color Guard. I was on the National Regional Board Planning Commission, the Planning Board, the Recreation Commission, the Historical Commission, Conservation Commission, Capital Improvement Program, and for the last 4 years, I was, also I was a trustee of the trust fund, and in the last 4 years, I've been on the Ways and Means, and this past year, I was the chairman. I had the privilege of being the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. First of all, I bring a straightforward approach. I have common sense. I think of everything. I look at things and I figure it out and give you a straight answer. I'm looking forward to serve you as a Zoning Board of Adjustment on March 10th, and thank you. You got any questions?
Do you want to address any of the questions that we asked Andrew regarding how you feel about state interference in local zoning rules?
Zoning laws, well, I'll have to learn it first. I'll read the books and understand everything what's going on. Like I said, I'm straightforward, I gotta read it first. I just don't walk in there and expect to have all the answers. There's no answer. But there's always questions, you can always ask questions all the time. And that's what I would do. As far as the state goes, because I remember Monday night, Stephanie came in and got up in front of the selectmen and told them about the house rules and all that stuff. Hey, you know, if they go by the rules and regulations, I got no problem with that. Nothing else. But as far as it comes from the state, they're doing their homework, we would have to do our homework. And being on the zoning board of adjustments, there are regulations that you have to follow. And that's the way I look at it. I'm just gonna do the job as it's presented, like every other board I've ever been on. I do my job.
Thank you. We'll take about a 15-minute break.